My name is Grace Miller. I'm 41 years old, and on a gray, ordinary Thursday morning, I died in the parking lot of a hardware store. Nothing dramatic. No thunder, no warning signs, no movie-style music cue. Just a regular woman trying to power through another day that felt too long and too heavy. I woke up late that morning because I'd been up half the night helping my teenage son, Ethan, finish a science project he'd forgotten about until the last possible second. My daughter Lily had woken with a fever, and my husband Michael had already left for his shift at the factory. He works overtime every week just to keep us afloat. Money was tight. Time was tight. My patience, even tighter. I rushed out the door still wearing the same jeans I'd fallen asleep in, hair pulled into a messy bun that barely held together. I looked like someone life had been chewing on for a while. I had planned to grab a few things from the hardware store. Light bulbs, a part for the leaky sink, and maybe, if prices weren't too bad that week, some soil for my dying houseplants. I loved gardening, or at least I used to, back when my life wasn't a constant race. I remember standing by my car mentally calculating bills, grocery lists, overdue deadlines. My heart was pounding. Stress, I thought. Just stress. But then this crushing weight hit my chest. A sharp, tearing pain like someone had wrapped a steel band around my ribs and pulled hard. I dropped the bag I was holding. Screws and light bulbs rolled across the asphalt. The world tilted. Someone screamed, not me, someone else. Call 911. She's collapsing. My vision blurred. Everything looked washed out, like an overexposed photograph. I remember thinking, not here. Not now, my kids. And then, nothing. Not darkness. Not sleep. Just nothing. A quiet so total it felt like falling out of time. But that nothing didn't last. Suddenly it was like I blinked and woke up again, but not in my body. I was floating a few feet above the pavement, weightless, calm, and disturbingly clear-headed. Below me, I saw a woman lying on the ground, her face pale and contorted. A small crowd had gathered. 2 men kneeling next to her, one doing chest compressions, the other shouting into a phone. Someone had thrown a jacket under her head. The bag I'd dropped was split open, screws scattered like tiny silver stars. It took a good 10 seconds for me to understand that the woman on the ground was me. I should have panicked. I should have screamed. But instead, a strange calm settled over me, a stillness I hadn't felt in years. The chaos around my body felt distant, like watching a scene through a window. I tried to call out to them, to tell them I was fine, I was right here, but no sound came. No mouth, no breath. Just the thought. Then I felt something like a soft pull behind me. A current. A warmth. It started gently, the way warm water wraps around your legs when you walk into the ocean. I felt myself drifting backward, then upward, carried by something unseen. The hardware store, the parking lot, the frantic voices. They all faded like they were being erased from a chalkboard. The light around me brightened, shifting from white to gold, then to something beyond color. Not harsh, not blinding, just warm, enveloping, like the sun rising inside my chest. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt safe. Safer than I had felt in my entire life. This was the moment, though I didn't know it yet, when my journey truly began. The light wrapped around me like warm silk, and for a moment I felt weightless, suspended in a place without up or down, without edges or shadows. It wasn't a tunnel exactly, more like drifting in a vast sea of radiance. Every part of me felt known, held, and gently carried. The farther I moved from the world I had left, the quieter everything became. No pain, no fear, no stress gnawing at the edges of my mind. Just a peace so pure it almost made me want to cry. Then, in the silence, I heard something. Footsteps. Not on the ground, there was no ground, but somehow I heard them anyway. Slow. Steady. Coming closer. My heart, or whatever I had now, didn't race the way I expected it to. Instead, another wave of calm washed over me, even stronger than before. It felt like that moment when you were little, half asleep, and you heard your mother checking on you in the dark. Comfort without needing a reason. The light ahead of me shifted. Parted. And someone stepped out of it. He didn't descend or appear in a flash. He simply walked forward, as naturally as if he'd been walking toward me for eternity. I recognized him before he even spoke. Not because of paintings or Sunday school stories. Not because someone told me who he was. But because my soul reacted faster than my thoughts. This was Jesus. I knew him the way a child knows their father's voice in a crowd. He was tall, taller than most men I'd known, with strong shoulders and a presence that felt both gentle and immeasurably powerful. His skin was warm-toned like rich bronze kissed by sunlight. His hair fell past his shoulders in dark, soft waves, and his eyes held more than color. They held depth. Every sunrise I'd ever seen, every moment of compassion I'd ever witnessed, every time love had softened a hard day. And yet there was something else too, something that made my breath catch. He knew everything about me. Every failure. Every fear. Every regret I'd ever hidden from myself. And still, his gaze was nothing but love. He wore a simple robe, white but not stark, glowing from within rather than reflecting light. When he stepped closer, the brightness around him dimmed slightly, as if giving me space to see him more clearly. "Grace," he said. My name in his voice was like warm water pouring over tired bones. Not loud, not forceful, just perfect. A tone that carried peace deep into my soul. "I've been waiting for you." I wanted to speak. I wanted to say 1,000 things at once. To apologize. To ask questions. To fall at his feet. But all that came out was a whisper, trembling with awe. "Jesus." He smiled. Not the polite kind people give when they're being nice, but a smile that felt like the very essence of welcome. And in that moment I broke. Tears poured down my face, not from sadness but from a joy so overwhelming it was almost painful. All the years of fear, doubt, exhaustion, all the weight I'd carried for so long, suddenly felt distant, already dissolving. He reached out his hand. On his palm I saw it, a small scar perfectly centered. A mark I'd heard about my whole life, but seeing it with my own eyes made my breath hitch. Something inside me realized with absolute certainty. He had died for me. He had loved me long before I ever knew him. "Come," Jesus said, his voice soft as a blessing. "I want to show you something." And as he offered his hand, an understanding washed over me, instinctive and clear. I was safe. Truly safe. More safe than I had ever been, even as a child in my mother's arms. I placed my hand in his. Warmth spread instantly through me, like being filled with life rather than heat. The moment our hands touched, the light around us stirred, shifted, and then everything changed. We were no longer floating. We were standing on a hill, surrounded by beauty so breathtaking it made every landscape on earth look pale, unfinished. And my journey with him, my Savior, had only just begun. The hill beneath my feet felt soft, as if the grass were made not of blades, but of something gentler, almost velvety. I curled my toes into it automatically, the way I used to do as a child on my grandmother's farm. Except this was different. The grass glowed. Not brightly, not unnaturally, just a soft, living light, like it carried a heartbeat of its own. The air was warm, fragrant, filled with scents I recognized: jasmine, wild honey, fresh rain, and others I couldn't name but somehow remembered, as though my soul had known them before my body ever existed. Jesus stood beside me, watching my reaction with the tenderness of someone seeing their child discover joy for the first time. "Where are we?" I whispered. "This," he said, sweeping his hand across the horizon, "is the first thing I want you to see." I followed his gesture and my breath caught. Below us stretched a garden so vast it felt endless. Rolling fields, glittering streams, orchards heavy with fruit, paths lined with flowers that shimmered like jewels. Every color seemed deeper than earthly colors, as if painted by a hand that understood beauty at its source. But the most astonishing thing wasn't how the garden looked. It was how it felt. Alive. Where? Loving. As if the entire place recognized me. We descended the hill, Jesus walking at a calm, unhurried pace. I stayed close, unsure if the ground would hold me, but it supported my steps as gently as a cradle. The closer we got, the more incredible the garden became. I saw people, real people, tending it. Men, women, children. They weren't working the way we do on earth, with sweat and strain. They moved like dancers, each gesture natural and joyful. One older woman knelt beside a patch of violet flowers, whispering something I couldn't hear. The flowers responded, literally responded, lifting their petals toward her hand as if greeting an old friend. A boy of about 10 tossed a tiny seed into the soil, and before it even landed, a small sprout shot upward, unfurling into a bright orange blossom that hummed with a soft musical note. The boy laughed and the flower seemed to laugh back. I blinked, stunned. Is everything alive here?" Jesus nodded. "Life in heaven has no fear. No decay. Everything reflects love, my Father's love. I felt emotion building in my chest, wonder mixed with something like longing. I had always loved gardening on earth even when I barely had time for it. But my plants had always withered or struggled or needed more care than I had energy to give. Here, nothing struggled. Nothing wilted. Nothing was fighting to survive. Everything simply was fully and beautifully. Jesus led me to a small patch of earth. Beside it sat a bowl filled with seeds, some familiar like sunflowers and marigolds, others shaped like tiny stars or glowing teardrops. "Grace," he said gently, "plant one." My hands trembled as I reached into the bowl and picked up a small round seed the color of polished amber. I knelt, though my knees didn't ache the way they used to, and placed it into the soft soil. The moment my fingers touched the earth, a warmth flowed through me, as if the garden recognized me too. The ground shimmered. Something stirred beneath the surface. And then, a shoot emerged. It grew taller, taller still, leaves unfurling like emerald silk. A bud formed, then opened, revealing a flower so radiant I had to gasp. Its petals were deep gold, bending outward like a glowing flame. And then, it hummed. A gentle, melodic note, soft and sweet, like the beginning of a lullaby. The kind I used to sing to Lily when she was small. The kind I sang quietly when I was scared or overwhelmed. The flower, it was singing to me. Tears welled in my eyes. How is this possible? Jesus crouched beside me, his voice warm with affection. Every act of love grows here. Every seed planted in faith, every prayer whispered in the dark, every moment you chose kindness, even when you had nothing left to give. Heaven reflects the truth of the heart. The flower's song blended with the breeze, with the water running nearby, with the soft laughter of the people tending the garden. It was a symphony of peace. I touched one of the petals. It felt warm, alive, almost like touching a gentle pulse. "My back doesn't hurt," I said suddenly, realizing it only in that moment. On earth, I couldn't kneel for more than a minute without feeling it. Jesus smiled and the whole world seemed to glow brighter. "There is no pain here. No brokenness. Your body is whole because your soul is free." A deep, healing calm settled into me, like something inside was finally aligning, finally breathing after years of being clenched tight. "Grace," Jesus said softly, "in my Father's kingdom, you will cultivate beauty without effort. You will create without fear. You will tend life that sings back to you." He extended his hand again. "There is more I want to show you." I stood not because I had to, but because something in me, something whole and new, was ready. The garden hummed behind us as we walked, each step taking me deeper into the heart of heaven, deeper into a truth I had long forgotten, that I had been created by love, for love, and to love. We walked beyond the garden, the soft glow of its singing flowers slowly fading into the distance like the last notes of a lullaby. Ahead of us rose something so breathtaking, so impossibly beautiful, that for a moment I forgot how to breathe, even in this new form where lungs didn't matter. It was a structure. No, a living structure, made of what looked like crystal infused with sunlight. Every surface shimmered with shifting colors, like light was flowing through it rather than reflecting off it. Parts of it looked solid, others seemed made of pure radiance, as though the building itself breathed. "What is this place?" I whispered. "This," Jesus said, "is where creation continues." We walked through the entrance, and the moment we crossed the threshold, a wave of warmth washed over me. Not heat but inspiration, something that made my heart lift and expand. As if something dormant inside me was waking up. Inside, the space opened into a massive hall filled with people. So many people, and each one was immersed in some form of creation. But none of it looked like earthly art. A woman moved her hands through the air and colors streamed from her fingertips like ribbons, colors I had never seen. They gathered and swirled, forming a floating landscape so real I felt like I could step into it. Two men sculpted something that looked like clay, except it glowed softly, and as they shaped it, the sculpture changed textures and hues in harmony with their touch. A group of children sat in a circle, building with blocks of translucent light. Every time they stacked 2 blocks, a soft melodic chime rang out, different each time, like each piece held its own tone. "Are they artists?" I asked. "All who are here are creators," Jesus said, "because they were created in the image of the Creator." His words fell into me like truth I had always known but never understood. I watched an elderly man working on a canvas taller than he was. He wasn't using brushes. Instead, when he moved his hand, the paint jumped forward to meet it, swirling with intentional life. The painting formed a scene of a stormy ocean, and as I stared at it, I could feel the wind, taste the salt, hear the distant rumble of thunder within my spirit. On Earth, I had never been good at art. My drawings always looked like lopsided doodles. My attempts at painting ended with muddy colors and disappointment. "I can't do anything like this," I murmured. Jesus turned to me and his expression was gentle, "Sure. You couldn't on Earth," he agreed. "Not because you weren't capable, but because the world is broken and its brokenness limits every gift." He stepped closer to a floating sphere of color that danced in the air like a living flame. "Here there is no fear of failure. No frustration. No voice inside telling you that you're not enough. Your hands will create what your heart sees." For the first time in my existence, I felt a spark inside me, a desire to try. But Jesus touched my shoulder lightly. "There is more I want you to see." He guided me through an archway into a quieter hall. This one was lined not with canvases or sculptures, but with countless floating orbs of light, some small like pearls, others large as lanterns. Each glowed with a soft, pulsing brilliance. A man reached out and touched one. His eyes widened with wonder, and I saw knowledge pour into him like warm light filling a vessel. "What is this place?" I asked again. "The Hall of Understanding," Jesus said. "Where every question finds its answer." I stared at the orbs, mesmerized. "Do they teach?" "They reveal," he said simply. "Truth without confusion. Knowledge without pride." Drawn by something deeper than curiosity, I reached toward a small orb hovering near me. My fingers brushed its surface and instantly warmth surged into me. Suddenly I knew, not like remembering but like experiencing, the migration of salmon. Not just the facts but the sensations. The pull of currents, the instinctive map imprinted by creation itself. I felt the river. I felt the struggle. I felt the purpose behind every movement. When the orb dimmed, the knowledge settled peacefully inside me, not overwhelming, not fading, just a part of me now. My breath shook. "This is extraordinary." "You were made to learn," Jesus said. "Every soul longs for truth. Here, truth does not hide behind mystery or fear." My eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of awe. All my life I had struggled to understand so many things: faith, suffering, love, loss, the world itself. And here, the answers were offered freely, gently, without judgment. Jesus smiled at me, and in his eyes was pride, not the earthly kind but something holy. "Come, there is still more." We stepped through another open archway and suddenly I heard it. The most beautiful sound I had ever encountered. Music. But not music like on Earth. The sound was alive. The room before us was vast, larger than any cathedral, yet warm and intimate. The walls glowed softly, pulsing with color in rhythm with the melody that filled the air. Thousands of people stood, sat, or floated in the space, each participating, each contributing, each shining with their own light. Some played instruments, harps, flutes, violins, but they were unlike earthly ones. Their strings shimmered with starlight, their surfaces glowed like captured dawn. Others sang, and their voices blended perfectly, each tone fitting into the next like pieces of a divine tapestry. But the greatest shock came when I opened my mouth. A note slipped out, pure, steady, perfectly in tune with the music around me. My voice. But not my earthly voice, strained, tired, always cracking on high notes. This voice was strong. Beautiful. I gasped and clapped a hand over my mouth. Jesus laughed softly beside me. A warm, delighted sound. "You were always meant to sing," he said. "But earth weighed you down. Here, your voice is what it was created to be." I lowered my hands slowly, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I never knew I could sound like that." "You never heard the truth through the noise," he replied gently. "But I always did." The music swelled, filling the space with joy so rich it vibrated through my very being. I felt myself letting go, lifting my hands, joining the chorus. Not performing, not proving anything, just being part of something holy. It felt like worship without effort. Praise without pushing. Love without limit. The music rose, wrapped around us like a living river of sound, and for a moment, I felt suspended in pure grace. Then the song softened, fading into a peaceful hum. Jesus touched my elbow lightly. Grace, there is one more place I want you to see before we continue. I nodded, breathless, overwhelmed, filled to the brim with wonder. Every step, every sight, every note was rewriting something inside me, healing wounds I hadn't even realized were still open. And somewhere deep in my spirit I sensed that the next place he would show me would change me even more. We stepped out of the hall of music and I expected another meadow or perhaps another building shaped from living light. But instead the world around us shifted, smoothly without motion, and suddenly Jesus and I were standing on a high overlook. Below us stretched a city. But not a city like any on earth. This one glowed from within, every tower and pathway lit by something deeper than sunlight. Something alive. The buildings were made of materials I couldn't fully understand. They were solid yet translucent, shimmering with hues that changed when the light moved, like pearls catching fire. Some structures spiraled upward like living vines of crystal. Others curved like flowing water, forming arches that looked carved by the hands of angels. The streets shone with a warm radiance as though the stones themselves remembered joy. People filled the city, walking, laughing, embracing, working together on tasks that radiated purpose and delight. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt heavy or burdened. There was no noise of traffic, no arguing voices, no weariness hanging in the air. But there was sound, soft conversations, gentle laughter, distant melodies blending into the atmosphere like warm wind. I felt drawn to all of it. Is this a city for us? I asked softly. For my children, Jesus said. A place where love creates, where joy builds, where peace guides. He motioned to a group of people gathered in a large open plaza below. They were shaping something, using their hands, movements, and what looked like pure light flowing between them. They were building a bridge. But not a bridge of stone or wood or metal. This one was woven from light itself, gold, blue, and white threads that intertwined like fabric spun by heaven. Every gesture they made sent ripples through the structure, making it shimmer. As the bridge stretched across a crystalline river, the water beneath responded, splashing upward in arcs of color. And when one woman stepped onto the finished part, it glowed under her feet, playing soft notes that harmonized with her steps. My breath caught. How are they doing that? Jesus smiled. In heaven, creation is not hindered by decay, doubt, or fear. Here, the heart shapes the world when it moves in love. I watched the people on the bridge, young, old, every age imaginable, working together, not competing, not correcting each other, not trying to impress anyone. Their joy was shared, multiplied, overflowing. Further down the street, I saw groups gathered in deep conversation. Some laughing, some talking earnestly, some reuniting with tears that sparkled like morning dew. One young woman ran into the arms of a man whose features held ancient lines. As they embraced, I somehow knew, instinctively, that he was her ancestor from generations before. They recognized each other immediately, not through memory but through spirit. Love here wasn't divided. It was multiplied. Will my family be here? I asked. My voice trembled. When their time comes, Jesus said softly, and your love for them will be more radiant than you've ever known. Nothing is lost here. Nothing broken remains broken. I swallowed hard. Will I know them right away? You will know them more deeply than you knew them on earth. Warmth spread through me. Hope, relief. A release of fears I hadn't even realized were hiding in the corners of my heart. I imagined Ethan, Lily, Michael, whole, joyful, free. Jesus touched my shoulder gently. Come. He led me down a luminous staircase carved into the hill. When my feet reached the city streets, something extraordinary happened. The ground glowed beneath my steps as if welcoming me. People I didn't know smiled at me as they passed. One woman with kind eyes walked up, embraced me briefly, like a friend greeting a friend, and whispered, "Welcome home." Home. The word hit something deep inside me. Jesus guided me into a small courtyard surrounded by flowering trees whose blossoms drifted like soft snow. A few people sat beneath them, resting, reflecting, praying. The air shimmered with peace. This, Jesus said, gesturing around us, is the place of holy rest. Everyone here looked peaceful, not idle, not bored, but full. Like their souls were drinking in something nourishing and endless. A man sitting nearby opened his eyes and smiled at me. Take your time, he said gently. There is no rush here. I sank into the soft grass, feeling it cradle me. My mind quieted, truly quieted, something I hadn't experienced in years. No mental lists. No guilt. No self-criticism. Just stillness. This is incredible, I murmured. If life on earth felt like this, I would never be anxious again. Jesus sat beside me, his presence a warm glow. Grace, he said gently, you were not created for anxiety. You were created for communion with God and with others. Here nothing separates you from love. Tears pricked my eyes. Then why can't we stay? Why can't I stay here now? He looked at me with a love that held sorrow in its depths. Because your work is not finished. My heart twisted. I don't want to go back. I'm tired. Really, truly tired. I know, he said. I have carried every tear you shed, every prayer you whispered when you thought no one heard. His words shattered something in me. I began to sob, not out of fear but out of the unbearable tenderness of being finally, truly known. Your children still need you. Your husband still needs you. And there are hearts waiting for the story you will share. I shook my head desperately. But I'm not strong enough. You were never meant to be strong on your own, he said softly. But I will be with you. His hand took mine warm and firm. How can I go back to that life? To the pain, the stress, the fear. His eyes met mine, filled with eternal truth. Take heaven with you. I blinked. What? Carry what you've seen. Let faith guide your steps. Let prayer be your breath. Let love be your strength. He spoke the words with such certainty that they rooted themselves inside me. When you garden, remember the singing flowers. When you create, remember the halls of light. When you feel afraid, remember the city of peace. When you think you're alone, remember my hand in yours. I clung to his fingers, panic rising. Jesus, please, don't send me back yet. You will return here, he promised, but not today. And when you do, nothing will separate us again. The sky brightened. The ground softened. The people around us faded like morning mist. Please, I whispered. He cupped my face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. This isn't goodbye, Grace, he said. This is I will see you again. And then, the light swallowed everything. The peace shattered. The warmth dissolved. Pain slammed into my chest like a hammer. I gasped, choking on air. Voices shouted. Machines beeped. Hands pressed on my ribs, hard and rhythmic. She's coming back, someone yelled. We have a pulse. I opened my eyes to a paramedic leaning over me, sweat on his brow, relief in his eyes. Grace, can you hear me? Stay with us. You were gone for 8 minutes. 8 minutes. But I had lived an eternity. The world felt loud. Heavy. But inside, deep in places I never knew existed, something holy had taken root. I had seen heaven. I had walked with Jesus. And I had been sent back with a purpose. The hospital room was too bright, too cold, too filled with the sterile hum of machines. My chest ached with every breath. Each inhale felt like a reminder of the hands that had pressed life back into me. But none of that compared to the ache inside my spirit. The ache of being pulled away from a place where peace lived in every breath. A nurse hovered over me, adjusting 4 lines. You scared everyone, she said softly. Your heart flatlined. They called it a miracle when you came back. A miracle. If only she knew. I lay there in silence, trying to piece myself together. Trying to understand how the world could look the same when I was not. Everything seemed too loud, too fast, too heavy. The beeping monitors. The rolling carts. The distant overhead announcements. But beneath all of that noise, like a quiet river running under the surface, I felt something new. A pulse of peace. A steady warmth. A presence. His presence. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I could almost hear the soft humming of the golden flower in the heavenly garden. I could almost feel Jesus' hand around mine. Hours passed. Doctors came, went, shook their heads. Their words blurred into the same disbelief. You should have brain damage. You shouldn't be talking so clearly. It's extraordinary you woke up at all. But I wasn't surprised. I had seen what lay beyond. I had touched eternity. When Michael arrived, he rushed to my bedside, eyes swollen, breath shaking. He grabbed my hand, pressing it to his forehead. I thought I lost you, he whispered. I squeezed his fingers weakly. I'm here, I whispered back. I'm not going anywhere. His tears fell onto my hand, warm and human and painfully real. And yet, I didn't feel torn between him and the heaven I'd seen. Instead, for the first time I felt anchored, grounded, present, because Jesus had told me to take heaven with me. The weeks after I was discharged were nothing like I expected. I thought I'd return to my old routines, my old anxieties, my old survival mode. But everything in me had shifted. Not magically, not like life became easy, but like I was finally breathing air instead of drowning in it. When Lily woke up crying from a nightmare, I didn't rush in exhausted and frustrated. I held her, humming softly, and in the melody, I heard a faint echo of the heavenly choir. When Ethan grew overwhelmed with school, instead of snapping or shutting down, I sat beside him, patient, calm, remembering the halls of understanding, where learning was joy and curiosity was a blessing. When Michael complained of back pain after work, I didn't bristle with resentment at another thing I couldn't fix. I touched his shoulders gently and prayed, not with desperation but with trust. And the most surprising thing? Prayer felt different now. It wasn't reaching upward hoping someone might hear me. It wasn't begging. It wasn't guilt-soaked. It wasn't formal or forced. It was conversation. Familiar. Natural. Like speaking with someone closer than breath. Jesus had told me to let prayer be my breath, and slowly it became that. I began gardening again. At first I was almost afraid. Afraid that by touching the earth I'd shatter the memory of heaven's perfection. But instead, kneeling in the soil brought tears to my eyes. As for the first time I wasn't fighting the earth. I wasn't striving or worrying over each fragile stem. I planted with gratitude, with love, with memory. And sometimes, only sometimes but enough to make my heart tremble, I thought I heard something faint. A vibration. A whisper. A soft note, barely audible, like the faintest hum floating through the air. Were the flowers really singing? I don't know. But I do know that heaven leaves echoes everywhere when your heart is listening. People asked what happened to me when I died. Some asked gently, others out of curiosity, others out of disbelief. A few rolled their eyes, thinking it was all imagination. But I spoke anyway, because Jesus told me someone needed to hear it. Someone who was afraid of death. Someone who thought life had no meaning. Someone who believed they had to be perfect for God to love them. I told them about the garden, the music, the city of light. I told them about the joy, the peace, the knowledge. I told them about the way Jesus said my name, as though he had waited for me since the beginning of time. But more than anything I told them this. Heaven is real. God's love is real. And the way back home is not through perfection but through faith, prayer and love. Not the strained, guilt-heavy love we sometimes try to offer. But the kind that grows when you stop trying to earn God's affection and finally accept it. I told them that Jesus did not send me back to punish me. He sent me back because his love for my life was greater than my desire to escape it. And every day since then I've tried to live that truth. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but honestly, humbly, prayerfully. Every morning I wake up I remember his words. Take heaven with you. And I try. When I choose kindness instead of impatience, that's a piece of heaven. When I forgive instead of holding on, that's a piece of heaven. When I pray with faith instead of fear, that's a piece of heaven. And when I tell someone this story, that's a piece of heaven too. If you made it this far, if you listened to the whole story, thank you. I didn't come back to keep this to myself. I came back to tell you one simple, timeless truth. You are loved by God more than you can possibly understand. Heaven is your true home. And faith, prayer and love are the road that leads you there. Hold on to that. Life by that. Let it reshape your life the way it reshaped mine. And if you want to hear more stories, stories that remind you of God's love, of eternity, of hope that never dies, subscribe to Timeless Religious Stories. There is so much more to share. And I hope you'll stay with me for what comes next.